So now we move on to the SE signals, beginning with SE1, which is amped eyes. This relates to the taut eye area, where the eyes are taut, and also there's no hypnotic element to the eyes. So this is usually seen in SE users that are SE lead and maybe even just SE conscious, without NI conscious. So the eyes just look like this. So there's a taut eye area, but also the eyes are just completely amped. So all the muscles around the eyes are all taut from the beginning of the area around the eye all the way out towards the entire orbicularis oculi. SE2 is a taut eye area. This specifically refers to the tautness of the orbicularis oculi around the eye itself. And this is in contrast to NE's relaxed eye area, which is like more gently embedded here, and you can see there's this lack of pull, so there's a lot of softness and sagging around the eyes. But with SE, the area around the eyes is pulled taut, so it's always in a state of contraction and pulled in this manner. SE3 is locked on eyes, and this refers to the tendency of SE to select a single object in the environment at a time. They do switch and look at it for the duration of their focus at the moment. So they might pick one or two spots and maybe switch between those two spots. So if they're talking to you, and if there's a ball on the floor, they'll look at the ball on the floor again with the amped eyes or the taut area. And then as they talk, they look over here, and then there's something else here. And then they go back here, and then they look at this again. And maybe over here sometimes, but there's a limited number of things they lock onto at a time as they're discussing things. Usually things of some interest. SE4 is eye-head parallel movement, and this happens in sync with the previous signal of the locking on. So the head and the eyes are aligned to where when the head moves, the eyes move with it. So if they're going to look over here, the eyes and the head don't change so that they move as kind of one unit. The eyes don't move first, then the head catches up to it. It's more like the eyes and the head move together. Instead of this, there's this, generally speaking. So SE5 is tunnel focus, and there are kind of two aspects to this. One of them is what's already been described by the tendency to lock on, and as they lock on, the immediate outside is kind of lost as all attention goes into center. So peripheral vision kind of fades, and they're kind of focused on where they're looking at. So even though SE is very attuned to the richness of information of where they're looking, kind of like fovea, there's a specific spot they're looking at. Whereas with NE, because there's less commitment to one particular data point, there's kind of this superposition where they're kind of open to seeing data points in any location, and this is physical too. So if there's something going on over here, that the peripherals are kind of a little bit more interested. When SE gets locked onto something, the tunnel focus sets in. So this is more of a psychological cue as well as a visual cue, and this relates to the heightened focus part of the behaviorism, where they won't move away from their object to focus for extended period of times. The next two signals are psychological signals. The first one being SE6, which is high stimulation. So you'll notice with SE users, as they're talking about their experience of life, there will be traces everywhere of them focusing their cognitive attention on the sensitivity of stimuli and the stimulation of stimuli. So they'll usually talk about the viscerality of what they're experienced, of what they want to experience, or what they hope to experience. So when talking, they might say, "Oh man, I was sweating all over. It was just." They might say, "My hair was so messy. I mean, I could just feel the clumps falling out of my hair, and it was just gross." There's going to be a focus, a lot of focus on qualitative aspects of their experience. And SE7, the sister of the other one, is a high sensitivity. The other aspect, this is psychological also, the other aspect of what they'll be discussing will focus on the inconvenience aspect and also maybe even the overwhelm of unpleasant stimuli. So there will be a lot of talk about irritants. So they might say, like, "Oh my gosh, Jeff just wouldn't shut up. I mean, he sounds like a chihuahua." Or they might say, "It was so hot in here yesterday, I couldn't even think." So these grievances with the sensitivity to the environment are a result of the persistence effect. So for SE8 bodily presence, this is the opposite of NE's buoyant undercurrent. This is the baseline level of bubbling momentum. So this is a PE signal. The bubbling momentum of SE will be kind of a bodily presence. There's a contact with the world. There's a level of physicality to it. So when they're moving, when they're being restless, there's an understanding of every inch around them, and there's an adjustment to it. So this will manifest in like fidgeting, and also it could be scratching. It could be an awareness of where they are, that they are there. And if there's movement, the movements are kind of falling. So all of that is part of SE's presence. I'm naturally not very good at imitating SE presence since I don't have SE, but I will provide better gifts for them in the future. SE9 is hyped perkup, which is a variant of the PE perkup, but with the amplitude of SE's eyes. So there's like, "Oh my gosh, that just happened," or "Wow," and "Holy crap, did you see that?" There's an intensity, and there's it gets hype, man. It gets really hype. Again, the eyebrows go up, but the energy bubbles up from within. But there is no the sparkle of amusement. So whereas any is, "Wow," or "Oh, that's interesting," or SE is, or "Oh my gosh." There's more of a focus on what is there instead of an excitement about what might be coming. And lastly, SE10 is pointed eye toggling, which is the sister signal to NE's brushstroke eye movements. And in this one, SE will also tend to look around, and eyes will do saccades, but the saccades will often, first of all, they'll often be in conjunction with the head because the head-eye parallel movement, but even if they're not, the eyes will tend to switch between much fewer points, and those points usually are designated by the locked-on aspect of SE, so there's maybe something in the environment or one or two things in the environment you're looking at. But even if there isn't, the movements are usually like this, and they tend to go along a horizontal line, and if they are going up, they just go up one place and then they come back down and to the sides. Whereas any eyes are kind of, they go around the whole clock sometimes in all directions, which is different from the way that SE eyes do it, which is more straightforward and it picks less points but spends longer time on those points as well. And that completes all the SE signals.